WD-40 performed well at its first race and won a few prizes, although there weren't a lot of entries. But we weren't the first sled all the time, but we weren't the last either. As with any project, you take it out the first time and discrepancies pop up. One is that the poor old Franken tank leaked all day, and I think it's just from the fitting in under the little guard. So we'll take that apart and rectify that. We broke one of our hood latches, which wasn't a big deal. Last moment we put one on inside, so we've got the pieces to fix that. Since our first time on the track, race-wise, the sled lost about 1,000 RPM. It was revving 88 to 9,000 RPM, which seemed to sing along really good. It felt proper. But on the racetrack it would only pull 81 or 8,200 RPM. So clutching. We could go into the gear case and change things there, but I want to examine this secondary, and I would like to upgrade it to the later adjustable one so we can get good belt deflection. So we're going to pull this one off and set up another one. I think this has a 36-degree helix in it, and I think for a 250 we'd like to get more like a 34 or maybe a 32. We'll see what we can find. So I think we're quickly dropping into clutching hell. I've tried 3 different secondaries now, and the third one has a bit stiffer. It's 14 pounds pull, and I get 8,500 RPM, which is quite a bit. It felt better, but we're still not getting any speed out of the sled like we had last week, or week before. So we'll continue to tinker. I'm thinking it'll be gear ratio. We'll drop a tooth or two and let the little 250 work where it wants to, and then we'll examine, if we have time, the high performance clutch versus the P85. So this is our next clutch. It says it's off an XLT, but I don't know. And it has the adjustable cam. I think I might have had this one apart before, but we'll take it apart and check inside. There's a million different ways to take these apart. Sometimes you need a helper. That's that. Now we'll ID that helix does stamped on there 34. I don't know if that's true or not. Who knows what the spring, it looks like a fairly light spring in there, so that possibly would have to get upgraded. But we'll give it a clean up. See what kind of a situation we have. Good to examine the little buttons in these clutches. They all show some wear, but they're all not in bad shape at all, so we'll just use those. Now it's one of my unfavorite jobs is reassembling a secondary. There is a clutch tool that you can get to depress this to fight the spring and get it in place. Years ago I just started using a threaded rod, and I always got to scratch my head when I put a secondary apart, or put a secondary together I should say. I always have to remember how this goes. I did put some paint marks on the sheaves, which will get me approximately in the right orientation. I often put a little drop of very lightweight oil just to make things slide a little better. And the helix has, I don't know if you can see that, the helix has 4 holes, and hole number 1 is the least tension, hole number 4 is the most. Because this is a 250, I'm going to put it in the highest tension spot, just for a starting point. It's supposed to be a couple hundred RPM upshift variance per notch. We'll try that. Then you have to make sure you get it in the hole down in the sliding sheave. And we are. You have to get the key in the spot. And don't forget the washer and the circlip, or the snap ring. You just start that nut until the cam is almost engaged. Right there. And now the trick is to pre-tension the clutch 1/3 of a turn. Oh, I went too far with this nut. Way too far. There. 1/3 of a turn. And if you mark the clutch beforehand, you'll know where to go. Now we can tighten this right up. Not right up until it won't release anymore. So there. And then it's a matter of getting the snap ring down into the groove. If a clutch hasn't been apart, it's usually not as easy as this. Usually there's grooves and things that prevent you from putting it together. And there you have it. Making some funny noises, but for test purposes it'll do. So we'll throw this on the sled and probably go out with the timer and see how it's running. Because we're changing the secondary, it's prudent to check the offset. So what I do, I run a straight edge across the back of the drive sheave, And I think the spec for this clutch is 5/8 of an inch. And that's where we are. Pretty much bang on. So that should mean the belt won't twist all that much. On the radar is this primary clutch. I think it's going to get upgraded to a P85, but then we have to recalibrate everything, so that'll be a bit of a job. Now the belt that's been working good is a slightly worn 042. That's the standard belt from Polaris for this sled. But we'll, because the secondary's changed, we might have a little bit of issues with that as well. That's a pretty soft secondary clutch. I don't expect this will be the answer. So we will adjust the deflection. So this clutch is set with the sheaves as close together as they can go now. And that belt is not going to be happy in that secondary. So we'll find a different belt. This is going to take some farting around. So little brother Rob came by and we did a lot of mathematics and decided that the W was geared too tall. And I expected that. Now I didn't have the video going, you've seen earlier how you set the chain case up, but we went from a 17 top and 39 bottom to a 16 top, 41 bottom, considerably lower gearing. As well, we took out those 32 gram weights in the clutch with the stall that was basically breaking my back every time it engaged, and put in a little bit milder set of weights at 36 grams. So we're going to go on the track and try that. So we have installed a P85 and tried several combinations of things. This secondary doesn't have enough belt clearance, so that has to go. Got our revs up a wee bit, but our speed went way down. So this is just not working very good at all. You can see how high up the clutch was coming. But that secondary is quite stiff too, so we're going to try a softer secondary for now. But we also took the time to chisel out a clearance for the P85 in the beautiful clutch guard. I hate doing that, but for now, just for test purposes, we'll use that, and then we'll build a flared cover. That has to be covered to meet the super mod rules for sure, and possibly super stock as well. So anyway, that's where we're at. We're going to go out and try it on the track and see how things work. raced in Christopher Lake, Saskatchewan on March 13th, and it was a very warm day. There was water on the track. Some racers didn't race because of the hazard. The bulk of us did. Turned out okay. There was no incidents on the track that could be attributed directly to the conditions. There was one sled tipped over, but it might have been getting tipped over anyway. WD-40 did well. There'll be some videos of the laps we did. We can't handle some sleds in the 300 liquid mod class, but we're basically 3 steps up, but pretty close, so pretty happy. So we bolted this footrest on that we horse traded with Derek, and we raced it at Nipawin, and it promptly broke out down here. Now, I really don't like the style. I think in the off season, when we do the big upgrade and fix all the things I didn't build right, we'll rebuild this thing as well to make it more like what Wall offers. I think it's kind of a foot trap. If you get your leg caught in there, it wouldn't be cool. So anyway, but for now we're going to reinforce it. We're racing on Sunday, and which will be March 13th, I believe, if the weather holds. And we'll just make do with what this is. It did feel good to put your foot there, but it's a bit too high, a bit too deadly, and we can restyle that. So we'll go find some aluminum angle iron. So we fabricated a little angle bracket of aluminum. It's fairly heavy stuff, and matched up some of the bolt holes. So we're just in the process of drilling this out, popping some rivets in, and we'll give it a quick coat of paint so no one will ever know we've done this.
Congratulations on the debut album. Thank you. It's been such an amazing journey, so much fun to do this project. So tell me about this band. Well, I think there's this cosmic connection between Morrissey, music, and Mexicans. Especially with the Mexicans traveling to California to taste the Midwest, the Mexicans with their midway. So I always thought there was this connection, and I thought like the guitar
As most temporary repairs, this will probably end up permanent. We'll run the angle grinder along here as a bit of a rough edge. It'll get us through for the weekend. Well, I've been racing a long time and going to and from races with snowmobiles in trailers, and I always learned something. Road was quite rough, and we didn't tie the nose of the Mad Merc down. That's our other race sled, and it was kind of jealous of WD-40 in the trailer. So we suffered a little damage. The bumper came over on the Merc, and as we jostled down the road, rubbed along the tank, and then put a dirty old gouge right in the WD of the WD-40, and it sat there and rubbed for quite a while. So that rub is actually into the aluminum, so we're going to have to do a little body work, but we'll get Scott to build us a couple, or another decal at least, and maybe one for a spare. And I think we'll just clean this up. We're ready to put the sleds away for the year, and this is one thing I kind of want to doctor before we put it away. Oh, it'll turn out. During the last couple of races, as I looked in under the hood of the WD-40, I noticed the carbs were bouncing around. And I thought they were just soft flanges, but soft is the word. This is split wide open. This is the PTO. The mag flange isn't split, but it's starting to delaminate from the metal inside. So I guess we'll replace those. So with episode 15, I'll draw this series to a close. That's 15 half-hour episodes, 7.5 hours of video, and the raw footage is way more than that. I did a lot of editing. And thanks for watching. We'll probably tackle another sled this year. It could be the last one I ever build, who knows. But I enjoyed putting it on, and I hope you all enjoyed watching it. It's just the way I do things, and we'll catch you next year.